Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to resilience, crisis management, continuity, risk, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Today is actually a special episode. For one, I have my returning guest, Regina Phelps. Regina, welcome back.
Alex, as always, it's a thrill to be with you.
Oh, you're just saying that.
I really mean it.
Well, there's another reason why today is a special episode. Today is the 1000th episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. From all the Voice America shows, the YouTube channels, and we'll probably be seeing this before the streaming service comes, but that's in the works right now too. We're in pre-production, but this still marks 1000 episodes of all of that. So thanks to everyone. And Regina, thank you for being my guest for show 1000.
I am so excited. I don't know how many I've been on with you, but I know it's been a fair number. And I'm so happy that I lucked out that I got the 1000th.
It was very close because I'm actually recording 4 shows this week.
Oh my gosh, it was
But
a roll of
because
the dice.
because we're doing it Monday, you beat everybody else.
Yay!
So it
How
really worked
fun.
out well.
And we've done a lot. I don't know how many we've done, but we've done a lot.
52 or 53. I
Holy
know we did a
moly.
few episodes before we started doing that monthly episode, so we're mid 50s somewhere.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I can't believe you
Fabulous.
had that much to say.
Well, I guess we have, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, tells you there's always something going on in the world
There's
we need to
always
be attentive
something
to.
going on in the world. Well, on that note, we're going to do a little bit of a flip today because I'm going to actually start by interviewing you with a bunch of questions. And then we're going to go back to you and I chatting. How's that?
Sounds good, but I guess that means it's the end of first segment, right? We're done. We'll move on to the
No, it's not. That's not how it works. So
okay,
first of all,
and I don't know the questions Regina's going to ask me, so I'm really going to get put on the spot here.
yay, 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 yay. So first of all, I thought before we even start, I wanted to acknowledge that today, I know we're recording this on Monday, and it is Memorial Day in the United States, which of course is to commemorate all of those individuals, both men and women, who have served and died in their service. And so it's a solemn holiday in America, and many people are out honoring their war dead and their military veterans that have died in the area of service to the United States. And it made me wonder, do you have a similar day like that in Canada?
That happens on Remembrance Day,
Oh,
November 11th.
Remembrance Day. So
Yeah.
is that the Veterans Day in November?
You could say that, yeah. Yeah, it would be the same thing. We honor those that have passed service, for democracy and for the country, and
Hmm.
all the those that have given their lives, and the families, and those that presently serve as well,
Hmm.
for those same high principles and values. And so November 11th is our big day.
Hmm. Hmm. That's great. It was very funny. I was reading a variety of articles this morning online, and there were several articles that at the very beginning it said the first thing you should know is that you should not say Happy Memorial Day to people because it's not
Yeah.
a happy kind of holiday, sort of reminding everybody the solemn nature of the holiday itself.
Yeah,
So
and
that's something
you
to,
don't know who you're talking to as well. Someone could have lost, a family member, and that's not happy.
no,
Happy
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So a solemn day for us here in America.
Yes.
So I wanted to start first of all with us being at the 1000th episode, which I think is super exciting.
Mm.
I'd like to know, I'd like to understand the history of how you started this podcasting world. Because for as many shows as I've been on and as many as I've listened to, I have never heard your origin story about how you
Well,
started doing this and when you started. So how long ago back was it?
it started June or July, I forget, 2017.
Wow.
So I'm coming up to 8 years already.
Wow. And
And
so
it's
you're kind of ahead of the curve because this kind of work was unusual back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, there weren't very many, if anyone, doing it, at least in our industry, I should say.
Right.
I Some people say I was the first, and some people say I was the second. But then they can never seem to tell me who the first was. So, so I don't, so
Everybody's guessing.
until it gets proven otherwise, I'm going to say I'm the first. Why not?
I think you
But
should
I
say.
but I tip my hat to everybody else who's doing it as well, no matter how long they've been doing it.
Mhm.
And
So
the
what
whole thing's
started it? What made you think of this idea?
I didn't. That's the interesting thing. I didn't think of it. I got an email from Voice America at the time asking about would I be interested in putting a show together based on crisis management, business continuity, et cetera. They thought it'd be really good, and I didn't hit the delete key because I thought it was spam. I really did. I thought, what the heck is this?
Right.
But it didn't meet all the criteria that you hear about, opening up links and spelling mistakes. It wasn't from a prince in Nigeria looking, to give me money. None of that stuff was there. So I just kind of left it off to the side for a little while, and I decided to look up, okay, what's Voice America? Because I always thought of Voice of America.
Right. I get confused of the two names. So Voice
Yeah.
America, describe the difference so your listeners understand that.
Voice of America is really the government radio for
Hmm.
the US. So
Hmm.
I know other people will describe it differently, but that's how I describe it,
Hmm.
Voice of America. And Voice America was internet talk radio or podcasts.
Hmm.
So I did a search on that and thought, oh, it's actually legitimate. As I'm looking away and going through everything, I went, okay, maybe I'll respond to this email. And so I did, and I got a call from Dee Daniels, my executive producer, which you've met Dee
I
once
have.
or twice at a couple of conferences. And a few months later, it started, and
Oh.
almost 8 years later, it's still going.
What was your first show? Do you remember what you talked about on your first show?
Yes, my first show was with the president of the International Emergency Management Society, Teams. Oh my goodness, now I forgot his name. Oh,
Oh.
oh my goodness,
Oops.
forgot.
Oops. Well,
He,
8 years.
oh, he's I have my spreadsheet open here so I can actually take a look and see. I'm gonna have to cheat. Harold
Oh, you
Drager.
can cheat. You
That's
could.
it. Harold Drager,
Ah.
president of Teams
Hmm.
International. He was my first guest. And we talked about emergency management, the Teams organization, because it's a nonprofit. So I
Hmm.
don't mind talking about it. And different risks like climate change and things like that, which is when the first time I actually was exposed to climate change as a risk in business continuity.
Really?
Yeah, it might have been floating around there as a topic already, but
Mhm.
with what I was doing,
Right.
it just
Right.
never made an appearance. So
Right.
that was the first real conversation I had when I started to bring things into what I do beyond, oh, there's a thunderstorm or there's an earthquake. I was expanded my knowledge by having that conversation, about
Wow, that's
climate change.
great.
So,
That's great. So it's not just educational for your listeners, it's also educational for you.
oh, big time. That's why I keep doing this. Is every time I talk to somebody, there is always a nugget I walk away from.
Mm,
And
mm.
it's amazing how often I can sit in a client meeting, full of people or whoever's in the room. Oh yeah, this is what we need to do, blah, 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 blah. And my training right off the bat, yeah, yeah, we got to do this and this. But because I get to talk to such great people, yourself included,
Mm.
I sit there and go, oh, but don't forget this and that. Something I
Mhm.
may not have known if I hadn't have spoken to one of my guests, if I hadn't got to know them.
So you're collecting these jewels, if you will, of knowledge that you're able to utilize really in your career in ways that you don't even know yet at the time, right?
Yeah, yeah, it really makes a difference.
Mm.
I interviewed Dr. Gabriel Schneider. He's the author of the book Presilience, and he's the founder of the Presilience Institute, Risk to Solutions in Sydney. I want to say Sydney, Australia.
Mhm.
And I was talking with him, and he was going through personal resilience, and he was talking about how risk and decision making go together. And we were having this conversation, and as many people may know, I am a practicing Buddhist. So I really think that if we want to make change, it has to start with us. Even in our organizations, it's got to start with the people, not with a plan or process type thing. And having a chat with him, and all of a sudden my mind just boom, expanded, going, yeah, let's stop worrying about all these different scenarios that are out there. Let's narrow that down. That's what people can understand. I don't think people understand, a million different scenarios.
Mhm.
And having some of these conversations, it really helps when I'm sitting in the room with all these people to have this different viewpoint that I can add and value to the table, whether it be the C-suite managers or even, just sitting around a round table with general employees asking questions.
That's great. And that's really, of course, for those of us those that are listening to your show, it's the same exact thing. And so it's a real contribution to the profession by having this so people can tune in, find information, and just like all of us just saying, store that away someplace. And then
Yeah.
when the time comes, it's available to you, which is great.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I started is um, I got frustrated with some of the awareness and training that at the time
Hmm. Hmm.
was out there. And I just went, there's more to it than this. We're just, all we're doing when we get to test, for some reason, we're just looking at a plan, a binder, and things like that, and going through the motions.
Yeah,
We need more than that. That we need greater awareness. We need to build our muscle memory,
absolutely.
and things like that, and other capabilities. So when I started putting this together, and the idea for the show was, well, let's look at business continuity, which is the way it started,
Hmm.
that it's bigger.
Hmm. Right.
You're an organization is made up of so many different plans, strategic plans, tactical plans, business units, divisions, different activities. Well, then why is business continuity only focusing on these couple? Do a BIA,
Right.
BCP, and test. Of course, it's more than that. I'm paraphrasing it here, so don't send me emails.
But
So
it is true, right? That everybody
yeah,
thinks it's a little silo. But in reality, you stop and think about it, it's the wide expanse of facility problems, which then can prevent you from having a business
yeah,
operation, and then things like security and things like communications and things like IT and information security and business ops and communications and rep and brand and blah, 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 right?
yeah. And I wanted to bring that all to the forefront so that people could see that it's more than that.
Hmm.
There is so many and different facets. They it's said in our industry and well anywhere, one size does not fit all.
Absolutely.
So we can't say, at least I don't think anyone should be saying that you should have to do a test this way. That's the way
Right.
it has to be. Well, no, that you're going to test differently in a pharmaceutical than you will insurance company, or than you will in an FI, or that you will in a manufacturer,
Hmm.
because the cultures are different.
Hmm.
Their
Hmm.
supply chains are different. You're not going to do it all the same way. You've got to massage what you're doing to fit everybody.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
kind of why I've had psychologists on the phone. Uh, yeah,
On
well,
the
it
ca-
would have
on the
been on the
podcast.
phone
Yeah.
when I started Voice America. It was over the phone. So,
That's true. That's true. Right.
psychologists, best-selling authors, professionals, academics, researchers, company CEOs. I always get a kick when I go to a clients and they say, "Oh, you got to be careful when you talk to so and so. They're the CEO." And I go, "I'm not afraid of a CEO."
Of course not.
But I've got CEO as friends, and I talk to them all the time. I'm not intimidated at all.
Well then for you, when you're looking at all the people you've done, 1,000, what makes a good guest? When you're thinking of when people are thinking like, gee, I wonder if I could be a guest on Alex's show, but really the thing is what makes a good guest from your perspective?
Let me go off script. So sometimes there are guests who have, I want to talk about this, and they provide that. But you see in the invites, and anyone will have seen it when I send out the invite for these recordings, outline agenda, and in brackets underneath it says this can ebb and flow depending on where our talk takes us. And
Mhm.
I put that there to let you know in advance. I'm asking questions on what you say, and let's go. I do not want to go through a checklist of what's your favorite color? Where were you born? What's your favorite music group? I don't want to ask questions like that. we may have a list of questions that I can help use to guide us along when we've exhausted one topic. Okay, let's move to something else. But a good guest just lets it all out and lets me just ask questions. Let me be the dummy because I'm really good at it. So let me be the dummy, and ask the questions, and we just have a conversation.
Hmm.
And that's the best guest when I just sit here looking at the camera and we're having a conversation, and they can be on the other side of the world. It doesn't matter. It's as though we're in the same room just chatting.
Hmm.
That's the kind of guest I really, really like.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody who's not trying to sell something,
Right.
somebody who's not trying to make a big point, but there's a ebb and flow of information. It's also great for the listener to actually have that kind of experience rather than feeling like you're being lectured to or, you know,
Yeah.
sold something or whatever, right?
Yeah. I've had a couple that did that. Well, here at XYZ company, we do such and such. And yeah, it aired, but I didn't promote it because I told
Right.
them up front, no, that's not what I want. We're not promoting, a service. I don't mind promoting books because having written and published a few myself, I know the amount of work that goes into them,
Right.
what it takes. So I don't mind promoting books and things like that, but don't uh, don't use me as your salesman, to sell your products and service in your company.
Right. I know. I totally agree. I totally agree. It needs to be something where people are going to get value out of it and not feel like they're being sold to, if you will. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So I love just having the chats. Like my favorite episodes with you have been the last 4 or 5 where we've gone back and forth more often.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those are more fun, though. I do find myself getting put on the spot if I haven't checked the Canadian headlines that day. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to check there. You have to do a lot of recent news reading before we
Yeah.
talk, right?
What is she going to ask me? I got to look things up.
Well, so and that's interesting. So that sort of leads to my next question, which is what topics are you most interested in? And is there anything in particular, or how do you like decide like what's a really good topic?
That's not an easy question to
I
answer,
know.
sorry, because it really depends on what's going on at the time
Hmm.
and even what I'm looking at or experiencing at a client site. Excuse me. There was I remember attending a conference, and there was a lot of talk about insurance coming from presenters at the time, and nobody had really talked about insurance. It was just glossed over. So I happened to sit down at a table at one of these conferences, and lo and behold, the person sitting beside me was an insurance rep who we got chatting, and I said, Chris Snyder was his name. Chris, you got to come on the show. We have to talk about this because everyone talks about it, but nobody actually says what insurance in the disaster world really is,
Hmm.
what it entails.
Hmm.
So that one, I got that one just by sitting with people, and usually that's how I end up with some. Sometimes people write an article on LinkedIn or some of
Hmm.
the other posts that are out there, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting viewpoint. So I just reach out, try to find them. Hey, would you like to be a guest to expand on that a little bit more?
Hmm.
Or I'm an avid reader, so I'll pick up a book, and somebody will have a chapter or the whole book itself, and I'll be like, okay, yeah, yeah, I got to get this person, come on the show,
That's
and
right.
it's really what catches my eye at the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of the most emotional shows I ever did was with a lady named Anne Travers from Northern Ireland. She talked about living with trauma
Hmm.
after an event, and if you ever see those episodes, I didn't say a lot because she was talking about the troubles in Northern Ireland
Oh,
and
yeah.
what that was like growing up and how she lost her sister
Mm.
to the troubles and how she's been moving forward with her life and things like that. And things like that. You know, I think our audience needs to hear those too because we have to deal with those kind of things as well.
Hmm.
And we do deal with those kind of things in our personal lives, not just our professional lives. Unfortunately, things happen. So I like to find different topics that capture my attention at that moment.
Hmm. Hmm.
Don't actually ever have a list that says I want to talk about these 5 things in this next season.
Wow.
It's more of, well, what's out there,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
just go with it there. You know,
I think that also makes the episodes more valuable for the listener because you are contemporary, right? You're not just going back to a textbook of how you do any of the topics that we do in our profession, but really finding things that could be meaningful. And something like what you mentioned, the troubles, I mean, that really looks at the impact societally and psychologically and socially about the events that we planned for, but that's just so academic versus what really happens and
yeah,
how an event really impacts us all.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. So people that are writing things on LinkedIn, you never know. I might be reaching out to you because I do read all that stuff. The only list I ever create is a list of names of people to reach out to.
That's great.
And some
Great.
people do get back, some people don't respond, but
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
okay.
What
Well,
kind of shows get the most views? Do you find that there are certain topics or areas that are seem to draw more interest?
that goes up and down too.
Mm.
Um, when Dr. David Lindstedt and Mark Armour came out with the adaptive business
Oh yeah.
continuity,
Hmm.
their book, I got them on and we talked about it. We had hundreds of views for them and thousands of listeners on Voice America at the time
Hmm.
because they were out there.
Hmm.
And then I did an episode on artificial intelligence ages ago, a long time ago, and didn't think anyone was paying any attention. And then all of a sudden, boom, the
Mm.
viewership went up months later. So I think it tends to happen with whatever's in the headlines at the
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
I've already talked about it, I do notice that some of those older shows all of a sudden get more views, comments
Hmm.
crop up. So I think I will continue doing what I'm doing and mixing it up and an AI show and then a risk management show and then a
Hmm.
operation resilience show and because they may not get a lot of views at that moment, but I can guarantee they do later on. It always happens every single time.
That's great. And so briefly, can you describe kind of what the transition is? So you started on Voice America, and then describe kind of what's happening because you're in this transition now, and many people may not be fully aware of that.
Well, as we said, I started with Voice America, was them for with several years. Then I kept finding a lot of people who wanted to be a part of the show, but Voice America, we were only airing one episode a week.
Oh, mm-hmm.
So I went, well, what do I do? By the time February and March, this was back in, I don't know, 2020, somewhere around there. By March, I'd already had the rest of the year scheduled out for Voice America,
Oh, wow.
everything. So, and I still had other things to air, and people wanted to be guests. And I went, well, I can't put people on the shelf for 8, 9 months. That's ridiculous.
Right,
So
right.
I started to move towards the YouTube channel. And now I always make sure there are segments there, and then um, that increased the audience as well.
Hmm.
And it opened it up to, I think, to more people as well, because Voice America, you listen to, it's talk
Right.
radio, it's not visual, but YouTube is visual. So they end up with different audiences.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then after having YouTube, I've now left Voice America. I move in the transition period, as you mentioned, because we're moving to streaming TV. So right now, we're recording right now. This will be on YouTube, um, but we may have a show later, and this might be one of them. Who knows? We'll schedule on the streaming service, so Google Plus, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, and a couple of others. So we're in pre-production right now to move in that direction. And then
Very
Voice
cool.
America is gone, and then I'll just have the YouTube channel and the streaming version of Preparing for the Unexpected. Hence the new background.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
So people will be able to find you still on YouTube.
yes.
And
So
then how will you be promoting this new channel?
that's all part of the stuff they're putting together right now. So I don't want to say something
That's
that could be
exciting.
completely wrong, and then they send me, okay, here's what we're doing. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't say that. So, but I know there is marketing, and of course, through LinkedIn, and we'll be looking for sponsors now because now that we'll be on TV, if a company wants to air a commercial on their insurance or their
Woo.
software or whatever, hey, guess what? Now we got a platform for you to reach literally the globe and many more
Fabulous.
people outside of our industry.
So
You
just
know?
think of all those vendors that you find at conferences like DRJ and think like, oh, maybe they could be an advertiser for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even working with DRJ and Bob, if you're watching,
Yeah.
you
That's right.
know,
Bob, did
uh,
you hear?
getting his promotion here, the largest conference in North America.
Mhm.
Hey, let's
Mhm.
put a 10-second promo or something, whatever, something like that together. So
That's
there's
fabulous.
it opens us up to many more avenues, and the way I see it, more people can understand our value, what we bring to the table.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want us to be the hub in the wheel, not just another spoke.
That's great. Ooh, I like that. That sounds like a good tagline for your business.
Yeah, yeah, I've been saying that one for years. I didn't think it was that
It's
good.
a good tagline, though.
Yeah.
So let me finish this segment by telling you a story that I think will amuse you and make you feel very happy. So, I mentor and talk to lots of young people who are interested either in our profession or kind of different pieces and parts of it. And it turned out my dentist, who's Italian, her daughter, who's trilingual at least, was interested in crisis management and resiliency. So I said, well, she's doing a year abroad studying in Paris. And so I said, have her call me and let's talk. And so we spoke. And so I explained a lot about this profession that you and I are in and what we do and blah, blah, blah. And then she had lots of questions and we went back and forth and back and forth. Then, like 2 days later, she sent me a note saying that in her risk class in Paris, France, the class listened to one of our segments, one of the recent ones, that where I talked at length about the World Economic Forum and their risk analysis for the year.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was on your show.
Nice. That makes me feel good.
I just cracked up. I thought, oh my God, I have to tell this to Alex because he's just
That's
gonna,
great.
oh my God. France, Paris, a risk class listening to us talk, honey.
That's great. I like that. And we only did that a month or two ago, too.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a couple months ago. Yeah, I thought it was great. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you because I thought it would make you blush a little bit right
Yeah,
here.
I am, but it's hard to tell under the lights. So that's good.
So
That's
on that
great.
note, so on
Yeah,
that, I think we're done with the first segment.
we are. I don't even know how to close this one. We come to the end of our first segment. We're talking with Regina Phelps about me. We're gonna, we're going to change topics. We're going to jump back into business continuity and resilience in our second segment, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. We'll be right back.